Recording is in progress. Okay. Just while people still filter in, we've got a schedule, a plan of attack. I'll be starting in a moment on Wikidata and the curriculum. And then we're joined by Dr. Chris Langley from the Open University, who's going to be talking to us about mapping religious change in early modern Scotland. And then we've got our guest speaker all the way from sunny Wales, and the National Library of Wales, Jason Evans, who celebrated 10 years working with open knowledge and open data as the national Wikimedian for Wales. We're just a young thing by comparison. We've only been working with Wiki for about 9 years, 2 months. And then Satu will be joining us at 4 and tea and coffee at 4 as well to talk about our new booklet of how Wikimedia is working in UK education. So first of all, just welcome to the Edinburgh Futures Institute in this fancy state-of-the-art building, which is on its website, it describes itself as a transformational space, which is creating a major public piazza, new garden spaces, and opening this historic site once again to the public. For those that don't know me, my name is Ewan, and I'm the Wikimedian at the University of Edinburgh. We have our student website down there at that tinyurl.com, wiki-uoe. And there's my email address if you need more details after today. So, Edinburgh Futures Institute, very shiny, brand new, but it was the old Royal Infirmary. Oh, it was the old Royal Infirmary, which was a state-of-the-art, let's not do that, hospital when it was built. Let me just pause that. It was a state-of-the-art hospital when it was built in 1879, and now it's been repurposed as a space with state-of-the-art teaching facilities for multidisciplinary collaboration, data-led innovation, education, research, and partnership. And so I feel this is a good space to talk about how this data-led innovation education can work with the old, support digital humanities, sharing history in new ways. And that's what I'm going to speak about next. But if you get lost, it is easy to get lost in this building. Here's a nice map from 1893 that's on Wikimedia Commons. Just to also flag that it's International Women's Day on Friday. So if you're interested in writing more women online, then we'll be having a Women in Tech panel discussion in the 6th floor of the main library from 12 to 1 p.m. All welcome. And then we'll be learning how to edit Wikipedia from 1 till 2 and writing new pages about the brilliant lives and contributions missing from our search results. That'll be the 6th floor of the archives from 1 till 4:30 p.m. You can stay as long as you want or need to, but the idea is to be a social and supportive environment to ask questions and get something published by the end of the afternoon. Okay, that being said, I am going to preface our 2 guest speakers by just doing a little talk of my own. Just to also flag that we're not expecting any fires, but if there are to be any fires, the fire exit sign is indicated over there, and you just go out this door here on the left, my left, your right, and then it's just down the stairs. Similarly, there's an accessible toilet just to the right if you need to partake of that. Otherwise, I think there's another normal toilet further up, much further up the corridor. Also, there's a sign there that says toilets. Okay, that should help you as well. Okay, without more ado, I'll launch into our first speaker, which is me. So, sorry for that. So just to sort of get started. We call this Wikidata and Wikibase Curriculum Transformation in the Digital Humanities. So, good afternoon. My name's Ewan McAndrew, and I work at the University of Edinburgh to support the whole university, staff and students, inside and outside the curriculum, in a role that represents a partnership between the university and the Wikimedia Foundation. Tess, can I just check people can see the slides online? Okay, good. Any questions as we go, just leave them in the chat, okay? So, or there's a Q&A function as well that I think Tess is keeping an eye on. Okay, so my role is to act. Why is that there? Let's get rid of that. Why is that there? That's weird. There we go. My role is to act as a digital skills trainer, working along other learning technologists, academic support librarians, to facilitate and act as a conduit or link, or to bridge between staff and students' teaching and learning needs, and see whether free and open Wikimedia projects like Wikidata and Wikipedia can help support developing their graduate competencies and our key commitments in data science, digital and information literacy, open knowledge, public engagement with research, and equality, diversity, and inclusion. As such, we see this partnership with Wikimedia as a multiple return on investment, given it demonstrably helps us walk the walk in such ongoing and increasingly vital commitments. So Wikipedia is now the old man of the internet, 24 years old as of last January. But it also has this younger, possibly abler sister project, Wikidata, only 13 years old, but it's already been exciting people because it's two distinct advantages over Wikipedia. When you can parse this information in Wikidata, it's machine readable, and it can be transformed instantly to any other language because of its multilingual labels. And it's linked open data, meaning you can link to complementary information, not just from Wikimedia projects, but from across the internet, allowing you to query using APIs and Sparkle endpoints, the direct, and importantly, also the indirect relationships at play in this semantic web of knowledge. Got an active community of around 25,000, fastest growing Wikimedia project with 116 million items of data that can be queried now. And it turns 13 in October. And the Wikidata item Q13, Jason, do you know? I can barely read it because it's slightly off the screen, but it's triskaidekaphobia, which means the fear of the number 13. So Wikidata, a bit eccentric in what it likes to label things. Q42 is Douglas Adams, for example. So the main challenge for us is to create a new data literate workforce to support Scotland's growing digital economy. And we were given a city region deal a few years ago, given money by the Scottish government to deliver on this and to have data literacy embedded in the curriculum. So if you have this massive linking hub for the internet in Wikidata, a collaborative community-based project, free and open to contribute to, covering all domains of knowledge, then this is a way to create a new data literate workforce to support Scotland's growing digital economy. And we've been working with Wikidata since 2017 now. So some examples of the work we've been doing. We've been working with the Design Informatics Master's course, where each year they have a data fair. And the idea is that the course leaders there were very much of the opinion that the teaching of data science depends on students working practically with real-world data sets. So I, along with 13 other data set holders or problem holders, would pitch data challenges, sort of 3-minute speed dating challenge for the 45 master students in the class so that they could choose to work with a particular data set and tell engaging stories with over a 7-week project. I pitched the idea of taking the university's Survey of Scottish Witchcraft database, which is a comprehensive recording of the information on the Scottish accused witches and witch trials for 1563 to 1736. And it was stored as textual, mostly textual data and yes, no boxes in a relatively static Microsoft Access database since 2003. So the challenge was, could that data, that textual information, be surfaced to Wikidata as linked open data to see if there were new insights, new visualizations we could generate, and other data sets we could link with. Here are some of the challenges. I came up with some interesting names to try and be more enticing, to look at desperately seeking Satan, mentions of the devil's appearance, who named who the accused were tortured into naming others and how that spread in space and time, types of torture, types of trial by ordeal, network analysis, ritual objects, accusations of shape changing, and more. And here's an example of the data they were working from the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft. It's a really rich, powerful data set that still has the power to fascinate, but it's organized into these 30 tables with like 300 columns of information. And here's some of the students that worked on it in the first year in 2017. And they felt that they learned something about European culture, especially the witch hunts. They had wanted to do a happy project, but it was still meaningful for them. And they found it quite useful to put their learning into practice into the real world so they could see the outcome and feel proud of ourselves. We learned a lot. So here's an example of a data video that another group did that should be playing, but it's not at the moment. So the students were benefiting from working with the survey data academically and enjoying it personally. Over a few workshops, the assignment allowed students to develop their understanding of and engagement with issues such as data completeness, an issue with historical data and the lack thereof, data ethics, digital provenance, data analysis, data processing, as well as making practical use of a raft of tools and data visualizations. And they did, as I say, feel it, they were proud to be taking part in it and finding it very meaningful. And this is something I want to stress. This kind of experiential learning we're looking for in our curriculum transformation at the university going forward. It's often described, experiential learning, as learning by doing. It involves hands-on experience, and it helps connect classroom learning to real-world situations, helping establish lasting behavior change. And it involves trial and error. And there was certainly some trial and error in the work that we did in those first early years, trying to model the data correctly. Examples of experiential learning include internships and undergraduate research. And this is something that we've done a lot of over the last 8 years. And reflection is a huge part of the students' learning in that they showcase their efforts and they are quizzed about it by other students and the course leader, and they reflect on their assignments in reports at the end of their assignment also. So after those first 2 years, we had 3,219 items of linked data on the accused witches and Wikidata, over 2,000 individuals involved in trying these accused witches, 3,210 witch trials themselves. And then this meant that in the second year we ran it, we could link and enrich the data by adding, and this was the student's choice, data on the gender of the accused, data on the occupations, and data on the social classification of the accused, so that we could create lots of bubble charts and other kinds of visualizations to showcase at the end of their project. It wasn't just witchy data that we worked with. We also worked with Wiki Loves Monuments data. And Wiki Loves Monuments is the largest photo competition in the world, crowdsourcing thousands of images of historic buildings, monuments, and locations. And we also share this information with Wikimedia Commons and have structured linked open data on Wikidata about all these buildings. So looking at the Scottish data, we will look to see if we could take the thousands of images of Scotland's cultural heritage and how it is described in structured linked open data. And what they came up with, again, personalization and choice, was a website depicting Gothic revival in Scotland. And what they were looking to do was explaining and defining what a Gothic revival architecture is, where the buildings are located, so adding some information on the buildings. They also created these hand-drawn designs of Gothic revival buildings that you could flip the top, middle, and bottom, much like adding a dress to Barbie, so that you could create your own Gothic revival buildings. So very inventive. So I quite like, in talking about this, I quite like this quote: educators who make use of open data in teaching and learning encourage students to think as researchers, as journalists, as scientists, and as policymakers and activists. They also provide a meaningful context for gaining experience in research workflows and processes, as well as learning good practices in data management, analysis, and reporting. Example 3. Mentioned internships before. We've been hosting data visualization internships because sometimes those 7-week projects of little workshops only scratch the surface of what we could achieve. So what we did, working with a much-loved real-world data set like the Witch database, benefiting students, educators, and the global knowledge community, meant that we could look to host the world's first Wikidata intern in summer 2019 to do more extended exploration with geographical data. Emma Carroll worked with me over 3 months, full-time, for 12 weeks, to research all the 800 or so different place names from the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft. Place names, no coordinates. And she looked at geo-reference historic maps at the National Library of Scotland, working with their map curator there, to see if we could literally plot the accused witches of Scotland on the map. Emma has done a talk on this, on the power of open data to bring historical data to life. And her detective work, working with different gazetteers, academic colleagues, the Scottish Studies Archives, Gaelic place name books, allowed her to geolocate almost all of the 800 place names and plot them on a leaflet and ArcGIS maps. And we were learning from past projects that you might have heard of, like the World War I project, A Street Near You. So Emma's work also fed back into the design informatics course, and it allowed the students in the following years to create a laser-cut 3D wooden map to interactively and dramatically display the accused witches of Scotland's gender and how they were tortured according to the different regions of Scotland. This work has taken us into interesting areas, with the students presenting on their work at a Suffer the Witch symposium at the Patrick Geddes Centre just before COVID, and then lending their visualizations to tour groups on the Royal Mile. So Wikidata helps teach students learn data science skills important for our digital economy and opens up research data sets for further inquiry. And what we always wanted to do was respect the legacy of research work over time, to open it up, make it relevant, make it explorable, and make it useful for modern users and build on this prior learning. So Maggie Lynn was our second intern in summer 2022. And she was tasked with this time adding all the temporal data, all the dates of trials and investigations to Wikidata, so that the accused and the witch trials could be explored in space and time and see when the panic periods were. Our third intern, Ruby Emery, did amazing work in summer 2023 and 2024, helping add that much needed contextual information so we could educate without misrepresenting, always a worry, and also explain our work and how others could in future build on our work. So she's also created a map of witch memorials based on the feedback from the public, and has added one particular new feature, a Histropedia timeline, where each named accused can be explored with the date of their investigation and a link to their full page on the survey website. It also now has links to the digitized open access page scans from such sources of information as the Register of the Privy Council of Scotland, so that a researcher or interested member of the public can explore the historical sources the survey of Scottish witchcraft itself made use of. Okay, last example, the Tower Block Archive. One final example is the internship to add the images of Aberdeen Tower blocks from the College of Art's Tower Block Archive. So we were adding the images to Wikimedia Commons and structured data, and we started with Aberdeen's Tower blocks, mainly because that's where I'm from, but also because it was an easier data set to work from. So we were trying to add the images and the history of the tower blocks, their coordinates, who the architects were, when the buildings were constructed, and more. And Clea, our student intern, reflected on her learning, documenting her process with blogs and how-to documents and how-to videos, so that other students and researchers could learn from her experiential learning to continue this work and share images and data more easily about Glasgow's tower blocks, Edinburgh's tower blocks, and the tower blocks across England and across the world. So finally, what even is a link? When I was preparing for this, I had to think, this is all about linked data. So how do we define a link? Obviously, it's short for hyperlink, but these words struck me. It's a relationship, a connection, something that enables communication, a means of contact or transport between two places. And the verb to suggest a connection, or to connect or join physically, or to clasp, intertwine. But I like this one as well. Obviously, anything to do with fire or torching has a very negative connotation when it comes to the witch trials, but with linking and having that idea of a torch or pitch or tofa lighting the way in dark streets, coming from the Latin for wick and the Greek for light, that struck me about the work the students have been doing to illuminate this dark period of Scottish history and telling the individual human stories behind them. Universities aren't always the best place to create databases or digital tools and websites that are meant to survive and be maintained in the longer term. Academics might start the work and request that these sites creation, but they often move on to different projects and different roles and different universities. Funding cycles come and go, and IT budgets rise and fall. Technologies and platforms are supported and funded one minute and shelved or mothballed or obsolete the next. So this data set, the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft, is one exception, I believe, or should be. It's too important a tool for teaching and learning, for we at the university to not maintain or look after it in the longer term. Having the data maintained in a way that the public and future generations can engage with and explore and learn from is vital for our understanding and preserving of knowledge about this history. Further, I think it's now a very real part of a sense of our identity, our shared history of the Scottish nation and the historic wrongs done to its people some 300 years ago. So losing that connection to our shared history, our shared sense of justice, of outrage, and of our shared humanity would diminish us as a university and as a country and be tantamount to further compounding the mistakes of the past. History, then, for me, is a living, breathing discipline. Our understanding of it is an act of constantly engaging with it, asking the right questions of it, and it changes as time passes and further research and insights are explored, discussed, and challenged. My experience is that this work with students and this data set and the work by incredibly brilliant and responsibly minded students has helped support their learning, their understanding, their graduate competencies, but also has helped illuminate a very, very dark period of Scottish history and create an environment where greater engagement, understanding, and empathy with the persecuted women of Scotland can be remembered, honoured, and learned from. 22 years after the survey launched as an experiment, as into what then computers could do in the late 90s, early 2000s, our students have year on year built from this prior learning and taken the next steps. And I'm enormously hopeful and excited as to what more the next generation can do to keep this legacy of work alive and our shared history remembered. And with that, I'll link on to our next speaker, Dr. Chris Langley. Thank you. So Chris is online and he has to be away by 4. So we might do questions. Hold any questions for me, but you might have some questions for Chris after he's done his talk. So Chris, are you there?
Yeah.
Are you able to share your screen?
I can, yeah. Let's try. Okay, Ewan, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Fingers crossed. There we are. Cool. Okay. So thank you everyone for coming, and Ewan, thank you for inviting me today. So I want to really continue some of the stuff that Ewan was talking about in giving you a sense of live project that's going on at the moment, of course relating to Scotland, but also giving a flavour of how from the outset we're taking the data that's being produced by this research project and putting it into Wikibase in this case. So this is an example of a data set that is being created now, but is being worked on in tandem with Wikibase as a way to sort of structure what is going on. So the project is about an incredibly niche piece of Scottish religious history. I will accept that. I don't need you to be fully converted to this type of history. But the project is about the annual meetings of the highest court in the Church of Scotland, the General Assembly. And in particular, the project is interested in the General Assemblies that met during the incredibly disruptive period of 1638 through to about 1653. And now these meetings take place every year during that period and bring together hundreds of the country's leading theologians and lay people to discuss the biggest and most pressing religious issues of their day. But here is the problem, and this was a problem. We don't know a great deal about these meetings. We don't know a great deal about what happened in them, and we really don't know what's happening year over year at these meetings. There are a couple of exceptions. Historians have been very interested in what happens in 1638, in a moment of revolutionary fervour where the Scottish people overthrow parts of their church, including bishops. But we don't know what happens sort of in the humdrum activity of these events. And then compounding this problem is the fact that the source base is scattered and complex. There isn't a single kind of corpus of records from the General Assembly, much like the Witchcraft project that Ewan mentioned from all those years ago. The evidence of what was happening in these meetings have to be kind of pieced together from other sources, including the sort that you can see from the National Library of Scotland on the slide here. Really gorgeous 17th century manuscripts. Now, for me, the experience with open link data starts with Wikidata on another project that I was involved in called Mapping the Scottish Reformation. But for this project, I wanted to move towards a kind of more independent structure by using Wikibase as a way to kind of structure, frankly, a huge amount of information that I was gathering, and I just couldn't track it. There's hundreds of data points coming out of every assembly, possibly thousands, and I couldn't keep track of what was going on. So this started as a way for me to keep track of my research and what I was finding out. It was a kind of management aid. So really I was interested in recording people who were going to these assemblies, places, where the hell they were coming from and where they were going to, where the assemblies were taking place, and also events within the assemblies themselves, including how many times people were speaking at these assemblies, and I'll show you a bit about that in a moment. Now, the reason I wanted to use Wikibase was it allows for very rapid prototyping to test properties. And for those of you that have used Wikidata in the past may know, to set up a new property will take you through a quite complex and rigorous process of proposal and counter proposal as you kind of iron out the issues around your property with the community. I'm going to be honest, as a personal project originally, I didn't have time to do that. I wanted to experiment with the sorts of things that I was recording, but also I wanted to query my data, the same sort of way that Ewan was talking about, to test hypotheses that historians have had for years. For example, where are all the radical ministers and clergy coming from in this period? Which places were badly represented in these kind of huge, large-scale ecclesiastical gatherings in the 17th century? So with that in mind, I tried to develop a way of aggregating data points that described a clergyman or a commissioner going to the General Assembly. And I can bore you to tears with more information about this, about General Assemblies in general, if you like. But all we really want to cover here is to show you how using properties within the Wikibase instance that you can see linked at the bottom of the slide there, I can break down certain aspects of a clergyman's career, from their role at the assembly, through their participation, where they'd come from, and as you can see from the list of properties on the left-hand side, sort of other aspects of what they were up to during that meeting. And the querying service that's built within Wikidata, and of course Wikibase in this case, allows me to quickly kind of look for geographical trends, and then, as you can see from this slide, export those results into slightly more interesting, dynamic, interactive sorts of visualizations. So for example, the image on the left shows the data extracted from Wikibase and then plotted into LeafletJS mapping library. And in this way, I can sort of color code and put these tags on different types of representative. So black being clergyman, red being nobility, and green being kind of critical witnesses from leading towns and boroughs. And you can kind of see like the sort of imbalance of where people are coming from for the 1638 assembly in this case. But then the visualization on the right-hand side is a slightly different one, using some different data that I started putting into Wikibase at the moment. So this is using Stanford University's Palladio tool. And Palladio allows you to kind of do these point-to-point references with the dots, the visualizations in the dots, being made larger for how much involvement an individual had, how much input they had at an assembly meeting. And indeed, in this visualization, I can actually compare different manuscript sources to see which is giving me the fullest interpretation of an event that was happening all the way back in 1638 and 1639. And you can see kind of the distribution of where those contributions were coming from. Now, this is a really whistle-stop tour into what Wikibase can do and how customizable it is. But this is a really substantial project that, as I say, I only started for personal reasons, but it became apparent that other scholars would want to use this, and also there were other applications for this approach. So as I kind of move forward now, I want to extract more data from manuscripts in both the National Records of Scotland, Edinburgh, and the National Library of Scotland, Edinburgh, relating to General Assemblies after 1640. So I've got over a decade of these things to come, and to assess attendance patterns over time and participation patterns over time, to see if we can identify new trends within the data that historians haven't been able to spot before because it's simply too complex. I'm also hoping to add information about committee membership and other very sexy activities that take place at these ecclesiastical gatherings, again to talk about participation and where influence was held geographically within Scotland that was then borne out by the General Assemblies. And of course, one thing that the eagle-eyed of you may have noticed on the last screen grab was that there are no real references on here yet. And as we learned with the Mapping the Scottish Reformation project, where we use manuscripts to extract data about clergy careers in Scotland, I want to sort of understand which references are the most dominant within historical narratives, how they're shaping the narratives that we tell as historians. And then finally, this model of analysis might relate to the 17th century, the period that I'm comfortable in and that I'm trained in. But it's also possible to track participation in modern Church of Scotland General Assemblies, or indeed any representative organisation. So think about delegates speaking at the UN, delegates speaking within the US Senate or Congress, and where they're kind of mapped throughout their kind of territory, to see where those pockets of influence are within these legislative bodies. So I hope that gives you a sense of what Wikibase can do, some of the ways that you can use it to kind of capture complex historical material, but also how it might be of use to transfer to other problems, whether historical or contemporary. So thank you very much, everybody.
Hello. Okay, great. Yeah, so Chris unfortunately has to head off. So does anyone have any burning questions that either from the Zoom or in the room for Chris at the moment? It's okay if you don't have any, but let's just give you a moment to. Is anything? Okay, I don't suppose there's anything in the chat, Tess. Okay. Oh, here we go. Something has. You're out of luck, Chris. I think there is one question.
Online, Helen's asking, how did you go about transcribing the manuscripts?
How did you go about transcribing the manuscripts, Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Helen. The thorny question. So in this project and in Mapping the Scottish Reformation, we will do it manually. So it's quite a sort of specialist skill set. Naturally, we're not using software like Transcribus. However, once you get an idea of how to parse these documents and kind of what you're looking for, by using kind of marginal notations in the manuscript, you're able to kind of calculate, get through them quite quickly. So as an example, over about 18 months on the Mapping Scottish Reformation project, my colleague, Professor Michelle Brock, and myself went through about 18,000 pages within about a year and a half, and that was working about 3 days a week on this project. So you can get quite quick, but it's also because you can follow the patterns of how things are recorded, but it's quite difficult to extract the specific data point with a piece of software like Transcribus. And because Michelle and I were quite proficient with our paleography, our handwriting, reading skills, we could do this quite quickly eventually, and process quite a lot. But at the moment, yeah, it's very much manual. It's me sitting here in South Wales and begging my colleagues at the National Records of Scotland to send me more scans of things like that. So if you ever see me in National Library of Scotland hurriedly taking photos of manuscripts, that's kind of why I'm doing it. Yeah. It's
one more from Helen Williams. How long did it take to get to grips with Wikibase, having previously used Wikidata? How was it to set up the technical side of it?
Yeah, I think Jason can speak to this because Jason was really helpful from the sort of learnings from the project at National Library of Wales. So that's a lovely segue. We learned Wikidata very quickly because a lot of the resources that Emma, Ewan's student intern, had put together in 2019, early 2020. But then Wikibase is quite daunting because the thing is empty. It's completely empty instance. So trying to get to grips with sort of feeding your own properties in and trying to keep it quite lightweight so you can get on with what you want to do. I think once I got my head into it, it probably took me about a full week to sort of construct the framework of the properties and the items that I wanted to use to actually create those ministers' profiles within the data set. So yeah, and from sort of a cold start. I mean, without the Wikidata knowledge, it would have been much harder. I think it's worthwhile starting on Wikidata. It's much better documented. But hopefully the General Assembly project at the moment that I put together will put some tutorials up so we don't have to, you don't have to learn to invent the wheel all over again, let's say.
I think we probably need to move on to Jason's talk now, but Chris, you might want to pop your email in the Zoom chat, and any further questions we could forward on to Chris as well. But can we maybe thank Chris again with a little smattering of hands together in the usual way?
Thank you, Ewan.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. And now we link swiftly on to Jason Evans, National Wikimedian for Wales and Open Data Manager at the National Library of Wales. So I'll pass on to you.
Thank you. All good? Great. Good. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm Jason. I'm the Open Data Manager and National Wikimedian at the National Library of Wales. So we are going to move away from Scotland and talk about Welsh stuff for the next 20 minutes. So today I am going to be talking about our Wikibase that we've set up for name authority management at the National Library of Wales. And the idea is that this bridges all the really cool stuff that's happening on Wikidata with the authoritative data that we hold at the National Library of Wales, so that we can control and manage and combine crowdsourced knowledge with the knowledge that's been created by professionals at the National Library of Wales. So we've heard a little bit about Wikidata. I just want to give a kind of brief tutorial of how Wikidata works as we get into this, because the work that we've been doing is very much based on Wikidata. So this is a Wikidata item. This is the item for Douglas Adams. There is a human readable label and description, which is Douglas Adams, English writer and humorist. And then there is the machine readable unique identifier, which is his Q number. That's Q42. So every piece of data in Wikidata has one of these unique identifiers that should never change. So that's a Wikidata item. But the real value in these items is the statements that you attach to them. So linked data works in triples. So a triple here would be Douglas Adams was educated at St. John's College. So the linking of linked data is, there's a link between this, and this is the nature of that link. So the property, in this case, educated at, defines the relationship that links these two things together. So you can have any number of these statements attached to a Wikidata item. So we can have Douglas Adams was born in, Douglas Adams is a member of, and you can have all sorts of different statements attached to these items. You can also qualify statements. Problem?
People online, can they hear?
Get closer. Okay.
That seems to.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try that. Yeah. So you can qualify statements as well. So if you want to say when Douglas Adams was at St. John's College or the course that he studied there, then you can have a qualifier statement, which again is a triple. So St. John's College, end time was 1974. And then you can add references as well that show where the information that you're putting into the database has come from. So that's the kind of essentials of how Wikidata works. Now, this is a catalogue entry for an important manuscript in the National Library of Wales collection. As you can see, it's basically a series of metadata fields populated with text. So if you're a human, this works quite well. You can read it, you can understand the context. I know that when it says, this text includes this work, or this is the scribe of this work, I understand what that means, but a computer doesn't. So the idea was that we take this kind of data and we turn it into linked data so that a computer can understand those relationships. And this is the kind of data that we can then get out of that catalog entry. So Wikidata already has information about the works that are in this manuscript. So we can then benefit from that. We can get all the extra information about the works that are in the manuscript. We can see other organizations that hold manuscripts that have the same works in them. We can get biographical information about the scribes of the manuscript or people who have owned the manuscript over time. So by aligning our data to Wikidata, because there's so much amazing data there already, we can enrich our data greatly. And there's lots of new ways of then exploring that data and discovering the information that's there. So scale this up to a whole collection, and we can do things like look at patterns and relationships between scribes. So this is data for an entire manuscript collection, and we can see the relationships between scribes. So if more than one scribe has contributed to the same manuscript, we can see those connections. So you can see there are some interesting patterns that you could dive into there where scribes have collaborated on the same manuscripts. And we've taken this same approach for artworks in our collection. So taken the metadata again that we have for an artwork and link it to Wikidata. So then we're linking to the Wikidata item for the publisher, which has all his biographical information. Or if we link, we say this depicts Aberystwyth, this is where I'm from. It links to the Wikidata item for Aberystwyth, which has coordinates and all sorts of other useful information that we didn't have access to before. We've also been using it in crowdsourcing projects. So we ask our volunteers to tag things that they see in our artworks, but rather than just typing in what they see, we ask them to link to the item on Wikidata so that we then store the string, the label of the thing that they've seen, but also the unique QID for Wikidata so that we can get access to all the information that Wikidata has about that thing. So, in terms of scaling this up across all our non-print collections, we decided to focus purely on name authority rather than trying to make linked data for every element of every item in our collection, because that's a huge, huge task. Just name authority is still a huge task, but it's slightly more manageable. So, name authority records. In libraries, we use authority files to describe have a common way of describing things, usually people, places, perhaps organizations. So this is a kind of form of linked data in itself. So every time Mary Queen of Scots is mentioned in our archives, this very simple authority record should be connected to it. But as you can see, there's not a huge amount of information here about Mary Queen of Scots, what she is. We know it's a person. We can see a name, but that's basically all we know in terms of like programmatically. So we discovered early on that authority records, there's lots of duplicates in our collection. They've been duplicated and merged over time. There's also lots of different silos. So our archive materials have authority records. Our printed books have a different set of authority records, and they don't talk to one another. We've also got other data sets like the Dictionary of Welsh Biography. And if we want to tag entities, so people and places in digitized texts, for example, like newspapers or journals or artworks, we want a standard one identifier that we can say, this is the same person in all our connections, in all our collections, and they become connected. So the idea was to use Wikidata as that identifier. So to do that, you've got to reconcile all the things in all your authority files to Wikidata. So if you have an authority file for John Jones, you have to go and find the same John Jones on Wikidata. And trust me, in Wales, there are a lot of John Joneses, so it's not an easy task. So we use tools, AI tools, and things like OpenRefine. You can see here, this is a file where I've been trying to match place names in a data set that we had to those places on Wikidata. And it will try and automatically match those, and it does a pretty good job with some things. But there's a lot of manual work involved in actually checking that you've got the right match, especially if you don't have very much data in your authority file. It can be, it can require some kind of manual research to go off and do this. So it's not a magic thing. You can just click a button and transform your data to linked data. There has to be a lot of work involved in doing that to a high standard. So the kind of benefits that you get from doing this, obviously we've talked about the rich data that you get from Wikidata. So for people, you get lots of additional biographical data about those people. But the Wiki ecosystem also has lots of other things to offer. So you've got Wikipedia articles, you've got openly licensed images of these people. You've got lots of tools. So there's a big infrastructure around Wikidata. There's an API, there's a query service, there's lots of visualization tools that have been developed for exploring the data. And then there's the authority side of things. So when we make an alignment to Wikidata, we add our unique authority record ID from our collection to the Wikidata item. And we're not the only ones doing this. So other organizations are doing the same thing. And what that means is once you've linked your thing to Wikidata, you can see who else has information about that person or that place. So you're not just breaking down knowledge silos within your organization, you're breaking them down globally and connecting collections all over the world in different institutions. So Wikidata is very good for all the reasons that I've just outlined. But when we came to starting to pull this data back into our own system and using it to power tools within the library, there were some issues with it. So obviously Wikidata is open to everyone to edit, and that's fantastic. But when we want to have certainty that data is going to stay a certain way to power tools and things within the library, we need control over the quality of that data. And we need to manage access. And Wikidata is huge. So Wikidata accommodates for the sum of all human knowledge, right, in the form of data. So the data structure or the ontology is massive and hugely complicated. And we don't need that because we're only trying to describe people and places related to Wales. So we need a much simpler data structure. So that's why we turn to Wikibase. So Wikibase, as has already been said, it's basically like your own empty version of Wikidata. And you can host that locally with a bit of tech knowledge and infrastructure. Or there's a free cloud-hosted version. If you go to wikibase.cloud, you can get set up in like literally 5 minutes, and you've got this empty database that you can then start to build your data structure and add data to. And lots of places, organizations and individuals are using Wikibase for all sorts of things. And sometimes those are closely aligned to Wikidata, and other times they're completely separate and it's just something completely different. But any kind of data that you want to map relationships between things, Wikibase is very good at that kind of data. So this is in a little bit more detail, the way that we are using Wikibase. So we take data about people and places and things from all different databases within the library. We reconcile that to Wikidata wherever possible. And then we pull in the bits that we want from Wikidata, put it in the Wikibase, and pull in the bits that we want from our own catalog systems and put it in the Wikibase, so that we've got this environment where we can manage authority records as entities. So we're moving away from authority management to entity management. And then people can come to our Wikibase and export the data, search the data using the query service, and get access to that rich data that we've created. So as I was saying, Wikidata has this really complicated ontology because it holds so much data about so many different things. We've simplified that greatly in the Wikibase. So a bit like Chris was saying, I sat down for a couple of weeks and kind of tried to map out the data structure. And so we've got 4 main entity types in the Wikibase, and all the data sits under those 4 main categories, if you like, of entities. And on Wikidata, you've got things like, for universities, there are loads of different types of universities, collegiate universities, public, research. The same with cities. On Wikidata, you can't just have a city, you have to have a global city, a big city, a million city. So we've really simplified that. So if we need data about cities in our Wikibase, we just call them all cities. It means we have to have much less data in our database, and it also means it's much simpler for people to search and query that data, because if you want to find cities, you just search for cities and you get them all. However, we can still get all the really rich data about cities from Wikidata. So if we put a city in our Wikibase, as long as we put the Wikidata ID for that city on our Wikibase item, we can do what's called federated query. So this is a query on my Wikibase where we've said, show me all the cities in my database. And it goes and gets them all. And then I say, now go to Wikidata and find the ones that are megacities. So the results I've got are all the megacities in my Wikibase, but we're not hosting that data. We're pulling it in from Wikidata. So if you keep that alignment, you can still get all the really rich data that Wikidata holds without having to host it in your Wikibase. So this is our Wikibase. It's called Snark. I just thought of the silliest name possible and then found a way to make it work. So you can see, you can search this like Wikidata, search by item, or you can see we've created like a homepage with lots of preset queries that you can search and explore the data. And if you Google Snark Wikibase, you should be able to find this online quite easily if you want to have a look. So there are some key differences to this compared to Wikidata. So there are things that you can't do in Wikidata because of the way it works that we wanted to be able to do. So for example, we have an NLW, National Library of Wales, media property. So if we have a person in our Wikibase, we can include all the images of that person that we hold in our collection. We can put links to them on that wiki item. And that's not the way that Wikidata works. So you've got this extra flexibility with your Wikibase to do things that Wikidata might not let you do. So for example, on Wikidata, sorry, if you want to say that someone is Scottish or Welsh, you can't. They have to be British. So obviously the first thing we did in our Wikibase was be like, no, you can be Scottish, you can be Welsh, that's fine. So this is, just as an example, this is an item for Lady Charlotte Guest. These are all the authority records, lots of duplicates, it's a bit messy, that we have in our collection for her. She's also got a dictionary of Welsh biography entry in English and Welsh. But these are all now united on one unique identifier. So we have a Q number for her here, and all the records that we have about her are linked together through this identifier. So we can do really interesting queries and things now that we've got this database up and running. So here we can see all the people with authority records in the National Library by occupation. So we can see we've got lots of politicians, writers and poets, Christian ministers, lots of things like that. But there's a huge range there. All those dots represent a different occupation. And this is all data that's been pulled in from Wikidata that we didn't have before. We also have lots of places in the data set. So you can see the types of places that we have, lots of chapels, loads of chapels in Wales. And we can do queries, interesting queries like the dots on that map there. Every red dot is a place that starts with Llan in Wales. So we have lots of places that start with Llan. And because linked data is relational data, it's about relationships, we can model relationships between people. So this is a family group. All of these people are related, and all of them have authority records in the National Library of Wales. So for the first time, we now know that these people, we can see family groups within the records that we hold. And that obviously is really helpful for, for researchers and for discovering links that you didn't know existed before. And because people are connected to place, we can do some interesting queries around the way that people and places are linked. So here we see the birthplace of all the poets in the Dictionary of Welsh Biography who were also coal miners. And you can see a very clear pattern there. This is the South Wales coalfields. So most of them were born in the coalfields there. This one looks a little bit like I've just thrown Skittles all over a map. But actually, this comes from a project that we did recently with the University of Wales. They had a database of places in medieval Welsh manuscripts, and we aligned that to our Wikibase. So these are all the places that are mentioned in pre-1700 manuscripts, I think, and they're color coordinated by type. So they go right from kind of towns and villages down to farms and cottages. It's very granular data. And because that research work then is kind of incorporated into our wider knowledge graph, that data then becomes connected to the rest of the data that we hold. So here we can see people that we have authority records for who are somehow connected to those places mentioned in the manuscripts. Either they were resident there, or they owned the properties, or they were born there. So we're pulling data together from different data sources. The final one, this one shows country estates in Wales and the properties that were part of those estates and the people that owned those estates. So the people come from our authority records. The families and the estates is data that comes from the Dictionary of Welsh Biography, and the buildings that are connected to them come from Cadw, which is the organization that looks after historic buildings in Wales. So all these different data sources are becoming interlinked in this Wikibase. And the idea really behind it is to grow this, continue to grow this, and create this interlinked knowledge graph of Welsh cultural heritage that goes far beyond just the data that we hold in our organization. So that's the URL for Wikibase Cloud, the snark, if you want to go and have a look at it. Thank you very much.
Our tea and coffee hasn't arrived yet, which is disturbing to say the least. So I'm gonna just invite our last speaker up, just in the hope that the tea and coffee will arrive while they're speaking, and maybe get Sarah up as well to talk about some of the WikiLearn courses that she's been working on. Satu, don't worry, I've emailed your slides to me. Yeah, I should do. So please welcome, I don't know how to say your last name. Satu from Finland. No, she's Kapiainen, like Madonna. Okay, so I'm going to hand this mic to you while I get your slides, and you can introduce yourself properly.
Thank you. So, hi, everybody. My name is Satu Kapiainen. That's the last name. I am the head of digital skills design and training within the university's information services, and I work with Ewan. I'm going to be talking about something slightly different today. So not Wikibase or Wikidata, but I'm going to be talking about Wikimedia projects in education and Wikimedia in the curriculum. Right into it. Okay, there we go. Excellent. There we go. Thank you very much for that.
Just give her another round of applause, because that was the worst introduction ever, please.
Thank you. I don't mind it. You know, it's the first name thing. It's like Madonna. It makes me feel very important. So you're absolutely fine. So while we're waiting for coffee arrive here in the room, I'm going to take a couple of minutes of your time to talk about Wikimedia in education. And I'm going to take the opportunity to relaunch our Wikimedia in Education booklet that's been produced in collaboration between Wikimedia UK and the University of Edinburgh. And it's a booklet that brings together a collection of case studies of Wikimedia projects in education across the United Kingdom, basically. So we have 21 case studies altogether from further and higher education institutions. And coffee has arrived now in the room, so I will try to be quick so we can all enjoy that. The reason for the relaunch is that we've added 7 new case studies into the booklet, and 3 of those are from the University of Edinburgh. And they're a nice mix of Wikimedia projects in the curriculum at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, as well as, you know, extracurricular projects that Wikimedia has been part of that have been kind of tied to specific topics and subjects. Now, it is a digital booklet, so I don't have copies to hand out to you, but I've added a QR code and a link to the screen so that you can take a look and browse the booklet at your leisure. So the main aim of the booklet is to really provide inspiration to educators and learners who, on the ways in which Wikimedia projects can be used as learning technologies, really, to support achieving learning outcomes and graduate attributes as well. And also to provide a little bit of inspiration and support for educators who maybe want to explore different ways of enhancing kind of learner knowledge and skills. Now, we've had our Wikimedian in residence here at the university for almost 10 years, and I've added some numbers here on the screen on kind of the training and upskilling activities that we've undertaken during those almost 10 years. Some of these are activities in the curriculum, some of them are showcased in a booklet, and some of them are activities outside of the curriculum and with members of the public as well. So this portion is probably more relevant to those who are students or staff members here at the University of Edinburgh, but I kind of, in the spirit of linking, I wanted to link this back to something that is ongoing at the university at the moment, and that is a program of curriculum transformation. Now there are lots of aspects to this big change program, but I specifically wanted to talk about something that has been proposed as part of it called Skills for Success. So this is essentially a framework of skills that has been proposed as part of the program that will be kind of embedded into the curriculum and the wider student experience as well. Now, there are 10 skills altogether, but in the kind of being conscious of time and subject matter, I wanted to focus on the data and digital literacy skill, which has been included into this list. So apologies, I've just lost my train of thought there. I need to refer back to my notes. So yeah, it is envisioned that this framework of skills, including our digital and data literacy skill will be embedded across academic programs and courses and integrated into the student support ecosystem as part of the wider student experience and be complementary to discipline-specific understanding, knowledge, and skills. Right, so you can probably see where I'm going with this. So Wikimedia projects is one way of delivering digital and data skills in the curriculum. Now, we've heard from our speakers today about the use of Wikidata and Wikibase and the kind of very intricate digital and data skills that come with the use of these platforms and systems. Now, Wikimedia projects develop a wide range of digital skills, from collaborating and writing online, being able to evaluate information, and also working with different types of data and data sets. And Wikimedia projects, there's various ways of how they can be incorporated into the curriculum, and also they can be easily tailored to specific topics and subjects. Now, here are some of the ways Wikimedia activities can be incorporated into the curriculum. You can have modules that are focusing on Wikimedia engagement. You can contact us, for instance, to organize one-off or a series of workshops that are teaching students Wikimedia editing skills in the context of their course. And also some courses, such as translation studies, for instance, might benefit from the option of using Wikimedia activities within the assessment itself. Now, assessing students' engagement with Wikimedia projects might look like assigning word counts, assigning reflective essays or blog posts, or just kind of measuring the level and the quality of student engagement through the dashboards that have been provided in the platforms. And now, of course, we have support available for this. I've linked here our Wikimedia in Residence website. So yeah, we have a number of really good examples of how we have helped educators implement digital and data skills into the curriculum through our Wikimedia projects. Now, some of them are showcased in that booklet, but we're more than happy to have a chat with anybody who might be interested in incorporating these types of skills development activities into their programs, or any kind of extracurricular activities as well. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our tea and coffee has arrived. So I think we've been talking for a while. We'll maybe just get Sarah to say a couple of words, then have a tea and coffee break, and then take any burning questions you have thereafter. So, but these are, me and Sarah will just point you towards a couple of need to know stuff just before we journey over that way. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Sarah Thomas. I'm Programme Manager at Wikimedia UK. I have responsibility for Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and volunteering across the UK. So basically everything that isn't England or major projects, which is quite a nice role to have. I've been working with Ewan for years, and also with Jason for years. So I have the joy of working with a number of Wikimedians in residence, galleries, libraries, archives, museums, individual volunteers, universities, all the rest of it. When it comes to talking about Wikidata, and when it comes to talking about Wikimedia Commons and large uploads and doing structured linked data, the thing that Ewan very kindly is bringing up for me is a service called WikiLearn. WikiLearn is basically, it's an installation of edX that is specifically for learning for the Wikimedia community. And one of the tools that we have got some learning on, which is super useful when you're doing bulk uploads and bulk edits to Wikidata and to Wikimedia Commons, is a thing called OpenRefine. So Ewan, if I can get you to search, well, sign in first with your Wikimedia account. So it's the only thing to get on this. You will need a Wikimedia account. And if we're clever, we can maybe see if we can look at what Ewan's password is. No? Okay, maybe not. That would be cool. Cool. So once you're logged in with your Wikimedia password and Wikimedia account, if you go into search, explore courses, Cool. And in the top right-hand corner there, if you search for Open Refine, then you'll come along 67 versions of the one for Wikimedia Commons. So not quite every language, but there are, this one has been translated into a number of different languages. So this is Open Refine for Wikimedia Commons, written by the lovely Sandra and a few other folks within the international Wikimedia community. This is a very, very handy step-by-step, nicely done learning tool for learning how to do those bulk edits and uploads to Wikimedia Commons. And then the one that has not yet been translated is the one that I helped write, which is Open Refine for Wikidata. Follows much the same pattern as the one for Commons. If you are new to Open Refine, which is, I believe somebody has called it spreadsheets on steroids, it is a lovely way to work with messy data. It's a very powerful tool for working with messy data. I would recommend you do the Open Refine for Wikidata course first, and then do Open Refine for Wikimedia Commons as you get your head around it. But yeah, that's that. They each take about 6 or 7 hours each. They're good courses to get your head around these tools. And if you're going to be doing any sort of bulk work on Wikidata or Wiki Commons, it really is my #1 recommendation. Pass back to you.
Okay, so I've got 1 minute before I want to take a break. So basically, what we're going to do is get people refreshed, both online and in the room. Let you think of any questions you might want to pose to myself, Jason, Satu, Sarah. I think Chris is away, unfortunately, but we could feed any questions back onto him after today. We'd like to thank people if they have already sort of had to leave. And for some reasons, maybe 4 people weren't able to access the beginning of the talk. So if there's anything you missed, the talk will hopefully be recorded with decent audio, and I will pass that link on to everyone that's attended today. What did I want to say? Yes, I just wanted to highlight that you can get in contact with us. My email is on this slide here, Ewan McAndrew ed.ac.uk, and we're very happy to collaborate. And also, just to highlight once again that we have our International Women's Day Editathon in the University of Edinburgh Library on Friday afternoon. You're more than welcome to come and join us, or to log to register at tinyurl.com, IWD Edinburgh. And also, just finally, just to highlight, I'll be talking about Wikipedia and artificial intelligence 2 weeks today, downstairs in 155. So is the old man of the internet 24? How is it going to fare against AI's brave new world and a chat-based internet rather than a link-based internet? So that'll be 4 to 5 p.m. In room 155 2 weeks from now, or you can just read the blog that I've written that tries to synthesize all that information at thinking.is.ed.ac.wir. So for those online, just post your questions in the chat, have a bathroom break. And if you have any questions, we'll answer them in about 10 minutes. And for those in the room, please avail yourself in the tea and coffee and come back when you're ready. And if you have any questions, we'll try and answer them as best we can. Okay, thank you. Thanks as well, by the way.
Yes.
I use the X. The university short URL. Case sense.
Yeah.
I do that every single time, like every time I decide, yes. Yeah, picture.
Anything on radio, and I scripted these sometimes. Some great time. It was quite frustrating, but his version was kind of pretty. The older version was like a very automated. So and I references and
No.
yeah. Well, that is what I recall. That looked in video. Not that I don't like it. It was quite like.
Yeah, I prefer. That's my tactic. I'm just telling everybody to get over it so I can help myself.
Shop that you make a solution to.
Because we don't have the Trixie record or nothing. And one of us came on half an hour. I can have tea and coffee. Oh God. Then went to Costco with me.
The thing is that in Chile, they had the same discussion. In Chile, they had this social.
Yeah, so I said
Outbreak. They call it the social outbreak. That some protesters are in 2019. A massive
Yeah, okay.
and they create the and you do simple way of naming it. And for Colombia, we got this protest in 2020. And we try to create the social outbreak. Just Chile could A week. It was their friend. Yeah. It's crazy. So we did. Yeah. Like
So this is the one that gives you a Bible stick. This is
Similar to the
but I'm not gonna put that. When they take me, I so.
one of the biggest one.
Some kind of ceremony. So I just put these because it doesn't really say to you.
Line for it last year. All information. Some information about solution capabilities about Asia, or
I think I've got it.
way. I'm trying to situation about how they are.
I'm sure they know about.
And I think the depth of overall stuff. And also the education program. Go to the here, I'm going to with the sponsor to conflict and then Captain Costa Rica. Yes, I think it's gonna do proper work. It takes a couple of days. I'm gonna leave a little bit early.
I see that.
Testing. So, okay, so that's 4:30. And most people now have a refreshing tea and coffee, and hopefully people online have managed to boil a kettle or pop to the bathroom as well. We've got some lovely cakes here, some lovelier than others, I'm being told. Red velvet cake is a stinker, apparently. So, we still have 4 speakers remaining in the room. So we have myself, Ewan, Wikimedian in residence at Edinburgh University, Jason at the National Library of Wales, Sarah Thomas, the Wikimedian for Scotland, or program manager, to give her Sunday title. Okay. And we also have Satu Kapiainen, who's my line manager, running the Digital Skills Design and Training Department at the University of Edinburgh. So if you have any questions for us, we'll see if are there a few in the chat, Tess, first of all, and maybe go to this lady.
Rebecca.
Okay, let's go to Rebecca first, because she seems like she's got a question ready to go, and then we'll go to maybe one online after that.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to test this microphone. So if online, if you can let us know in the chat if you can't hear us, and we will try and turn the volume up a lot. All right.
All right.
Over to questions in the room.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right. Nice and close. Yeah, I had a question for Jason. Shwmai dwi dysgu Cymraeg. I'm learning Welsh. And I just wondered if you could talk to us a bit more about like the challenges of working bilingually and online and expand on the challenges of that. Yeah.
Maybe if you come to the front as well.
Yeah. Da iawn am dysgu Cymraeg. I'm impressed. Good job. Yeah, so one thing I probably didn't elaborate on too much was that the Wikibase that we're building, it's from the outset, I made it the mission to make it fully bilingual. So every piece of data has an English and a Welsh language label and description, so that people can reuse that data in any language. And we've already seen some really interesting reuse where the data's been used in Welsh language quiz apps, and the BBC have used it to make a Welsh language map. And, you know, there's some really interesting use cases. That presents challenges and creates work, because although there's lots of Welsh in Wikidata, there's 5 million Welsh language labels in Wikidata, just pretty impressive. But every time we go to import some data in, there's always gaps. And so there's then more research needed to make sure that the translations are using are appropriate. Name people's names, fine. If they've got like honorary titles and things, those need to be translated, but they're fairly, you know, names are names other than that. Place names is a tricky one, and we're working with the Welsh Language Commission, and they have a team that work on standardizing Welsh place names and things, so we've aligned a lot of our data to their work. And we're working with the translation department in the Welsh government as well, to try and make that work easier. Google Translate, when you say that, some people are like, but actually it's got a lot better, and it's quite often a good starting place for translating, and that can speed up the process of making sure that everything's available in Welsh to an extent. But yeah, it's fully bilingual. Whenever we do events and things, we make them fully bilingual, or we have Welsh specific events where we work just through the medium of Welsh. So it features strongly in the work that we do.
Cheers. Should we just alternate to the people online, see if there's any questions there, and then see if there are any questions in the room after that?
So this is another question for Jason from Helen, who asks, did you already know how to do federated SparkQL queries, or was it something you had to learn how to do?
So did you already know how to do federated Sparkle queries, or were you just born with it?
Okay, the short answer is no, I didn't know how to do it. As I've done more and more work with Wikidata, I've kind of taught myself Sparkle generally, so I had a kind of understanding of how the language worked. For the federated querying, I had to rely on some documentation. When Wikibase was first released, there was it was given to some organizations, some people to test, and they very kindly wrote up some documentation about the work that they did, and they gave examples. I've figured out how to do a federated query and stuff like that. So I spent time reading that, and I think you can get all that documentation on the Wikibase Cloud website or through the website somehow. Since then, of course, we have ChatGPT, and that can be very helpful if you're trying to write a Sparkle query and you just can't work out why it isn't working properly. Give it to ChatGPT and it'll probably help you correct it without too much trauma. So it's a good top tip.
Anyone in the room have any questions for any of our speakers? Oh, we got one here. Just if you could say your name and also sort of if you're studying anything or working as anything, just to give us a flavor of who's in the room and the angle of interest.
I'm Amy. I was a medieval history student last year. Now I'm working seasonal work for the National Trust, but that's a little bit irrelevant.
You go right up because it's such a weird thing.
Great. Sorry, I'm Amy. This is kind of a general question. I'm still trying to work out in my head now that there's coffee in my brain. But from, say, as a historical perspective, if you were a user and you were wanting to, say, use one of these for anyone, different resources for, say, historical research, do you find that obviously it's great, and Wikipedia has always been great for having its kind of citations at the bottom, and you're able to see the sources, and getting more people involved in editing Wikipedia means, as you say, more students are aware of how it's constructed. But do you find that most of your users are aware of the potential, the problems that you've maybe encountered trying to construct it, whether in translation or maybe the biases of the source material that you've had to use, whether it all came from, say, one collection that was donated to the library? And do you find that whether users approaching these wonderful tools tend to forget to actually criticize the sources sometimes? And secondly, how do you make it both easy to follow and open to users to understand those sources without boring them with all of the processes you went to create it? Sorry, that's
a lot to unpack. Yeah, over to you.
Okay, yeah, I can have a go at that. So for data that we import from Wikidata, if there are references, because you can reference each statement on an item on Wikidata, so we can import that so that that's visible. Obviously, having those identifiers from other organizations at the bottom of a Wikidata item, or the same on Wikibase, those will take you straight back to the relevant information in the organization that has made the link. So that immediately allows users to go off and check reliable sources. These are going to be, institutions, national libraries, archives, etc., so that people can go off and check those sources. So there are means and ways of checking it. We have a message somewhere, a statement on our Wikibase that says this is mostly crowdsourced data that has its own risks. It's not, sort of got the seal of approval of like, this is, authoritative library data. So we do make users aware of that. But from my experience, users are not that bothered because of the extra the richness of the data that they can do things that they simply couldn't do before in terms of finding things and seeing connections between things. And actually that added benefit outweighs any perceived risk around data quality. And I think it is a perceived risk in most cases. I think there's less risk around data quality on Wikidata than a project like Wikipedia, just because of the nature of the material that you're sharing and the fact that, every time an organization links to a Wikidata item and says, we've got data about this person as well, it allows you to check the key data against what they hold. So if the birth date is out, or or there's where they were born is different or something in one data set, that can be checked, and then you can make sure that the data is corrected in Wikidata. And so, yeah, and so there's a much lower error rate in that data, I would say, generally, compared to something like Wikipedia, when it's kind of free text and there's more kind of scope potentially for errors to creep in. Yeah, that would be what I'd say. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Just something we've been thinking about, because we've been working with a variety of students adding data to Wikidata from the Witches database for over 5 years. So periodically there are import errors made that are picked up by other editors, and so the data is improved. Also, the visualization of the data allows you to see any anomalies, like if you've suddenly allocated someone as their place of residence was Perth, Australia, rather than Perth, Scotland, for example. But it's the nature of working with data when we are trying to geolocate as a slightly inexact science, because some of these hamlets don't exist anymore, or farmsteads, or they've been consumed by conurbations or suburbs of larger cities. So, and there's some places like Netherkeith that we're not sure if it referred to Netherkeith in Lothian or Aberdeen. But through opening up that data set for the members of the public, local history groups, they get in touch And they tell us, no, 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 no. If you look more closely at this, this is the Netherkeith in the Aberdeenshire area. And we go, okay, great. But it's tracking those changes and recording those changes and periodically having these quality assurance methodologies in place that you can check the data on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we've actually found by making our data open, people have come to us, like we've shared lots of artworks on Wikimedia Commons and data for those artworks on Wikidata. And you wouldn't believe how many people have got in touch and gone, your description of that image is wrong. You know, it's clearly 10 years earlier than that, or it's clearly this castle and not that castle. And we can feed that back to our curators who then do their due diligence. And if the comment was right, they will change the catalogue record. Our data has actually been improved as a result of being more transparent with it and opening it up for everyone to kind of access and play with.
Just one final thing. Yeah, the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft was developed in the 1990s and 2000, realized and launched in 2003. It hasn't been updated since then. So when we find researchers, PhD students, or just local history groups that are coming back to us with information, we notice anomalies that should have been addressed 20 odd years ago. But I would say again that it's helping us improve the data through opening it up and allowing this level of scrutiny and engagement, but also working with students, they're very minded, teaching them about verifiability and the need to have that link to the survey website and the need to verify the data generally, which is a key concept for the internet in general and AI. You know, those sort of AI sort of chat boxes at the top of Google sometimes will mention that the information is being pulled from the WHO or Wikipedia, and that's really important that you can test and verify the information. So working with Wikidata, it's all about making sure that reference is there and that we can have that level of attribution and a trustworthy ecosystem, because that's what we all want, is something you can trust, but you can't just will that into being. You have to become literate in it. Any questions in the room? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have gone to the people online, but we'll go to the people online next. You go first.
Hi, my name is Evelyn and I work in the Research Data Service. And just from what you were just saying about like verifiability and traceability, my question is, I guess, about Wikidata in the context of research being used as a resource. Would you recommend people use it as a starting point for research? Because it seems like there are obviously research questions that you could answer with something like an open Wikidata resource. And is there the ability to do like versioning so that you can cite a stable or like timestamp specific version of a Wikidata database so that people who then follow that reference later can find like exactly what this person was seeing?
So in terms of, I would say, well, I mean, in terms of Wikipedia and Wikidata, I think we always advise that it's not the end point of your searching. And, you know, although Wikipedia's always had the sort of been the whipping boy of the internet for being the poster boy for being untrustworthy information, the internet's kind of got a general problem with trust. So I think it's about literacy generally and using Wikipedia as a place to orientate yourself at the beginning of your search so that because it's the largest reference work on the internet. So it's really useful in that orienting point of view and clarificatory point of view. And Wikidata is another version of that because it's machine readable and it can give you that initial orientation. But I would also say that what's useful about Wikidata is that you can ask it questions, and it will allow you to explore the direct relationships at play, which you might already know about, but it will also allow you to explore the indirect relationships that you might only have hinted at or suspected, or you might not have guessed at all. And that in that way, sort of like the gene researchers are using it to help indicate what might be further areas of future study that they then do a deep delve in. So I would say it's an opening. It's a sort of, it's surface level data as well. It's not getting into the very minutiae of data. Who, what, where, why. Maybe not why. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just on your kind of versioning and having a kind of stable reference. Firstly, I'll say you can see the version history of every Wikidata item. You can see every edit made and who has made the edit, and you can compare that version to the previous version, etc. But I'd also say I would never recommend directly referencing Wikidata, much in the way that you shouldn't directly reference Wikipedia. The way I suggest that it's used is as a starting point, like you say, that will lead you to those reliable sources through the links, through the references, through those external identifiers that are attached to the Wikidata item, rather than directly referencing Wikidata. The power of it is the way that it pulls information together from different sources. So I always recommend using it as a way to, a kind of gateway back to all those reliable sources that have helped feed and create that item in the first place.
Any questions online? We've got about officially 10 minutes. So let's see if we can squeeze in a couple more questions, and then we're happy to maybe just answer questions informally thereafter.
So we do have a couple online. So I'll start with one that might have a longer answer. So this is from David, who says, at UPTC University in Colombia, they are creating a small data set of around 100 graffiti and mural art. They have now geo-referenced picture samples and basic descriptions of the graffiti samples as non-constructed data. Any advice on first steps in order to start using Wikibase to spread the findings and connect with other databases on mural art? Colombia.
Do you want to?
I was just going to ask if this freedom of panorama.
So Sarah was just asking if there's freedom of panorama rights in Colombia for 2D artworks.
Specific exception in the UK that might make things different.
So it's better if you're seen and heard, Sarah. So I'm afraid to get you out of your seat there.
All right. So just a small a note on taking pictures of 2D artworks. And depending on what country you're in, freedom of panorama doesn't always apply to 2D artworks. So taking pictures of murals and graffiti work in the UK, for example, is quite difficult. You can't put those onto an open license. So it just depends on what they want to do with the Wikibase and whether or not there is an exception for 2D artworks under freedom of panorama, wherever they are. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of that, but there is a list on Wikipedia.
Yeah. If you have freedom of panorama and you can share those images, I suggest that maybe uploading them to Wikimedia Commons would be a good starting point. And Wikimedia Commons has its own structured data that helps you connect with other relevant content. And behind the scenes, sort of underneath Wikimedia Commons, that is a Wikibase. That it's using to use that structured data. So I'd say that would be a good starting point, and that could help join things up. There's also a categorization system on Wikimedia Commons that might help you link with other relevant content. Otherwise, if you want to build your own Wikibase to do it, Wikibase Cloud doesn't let you import images natively into the system. You have to bring them from Wikimedia Commons. So you'd have to set up a custom version of Wikimedia, of Wikibase to be able to store images and show them locally in the database, which is a bit more complicated. But once you've got that set up, you can start combining it with data from other sources and start building those links.
It does apparently have.
Great. Hope that goes some way to answering the question.
And next.
So these next couple of questions are for Ewan, and they're about the Wikipedia and AI session. So there's been lots of compliments about the session today for all of the speakers. So some people have been asking, can anyone join the Wikipedia and AI session? And if they can, will it be run online, and how do they join?
So it was going to be for an internal audience only, because I was still researching the topic, because it's a fast moving project, but it's got 16 signups so far, and it occurs to me that there's no good reason why people couldn't join in like we've done today. So I think my only sort of proviso is that I haven't set up an external Zoom or Eventbrite link as of yet. But if you're interested, just drop me an email and I will do so after today, and we'll run it much like we've done today. It's just an hour. I'll try not to talk too long, but take questions thereafter. So yeah, everyone's welcome. And I'll set up a Zoom and an Eventbrite.
Thank you. So that looks like most of the questions that came through online. Are there any other questions in the room that anyone's thought of in the last couple of minutes? In that case, Ewan, would you like to wrap us up?
Can I just shout out to Eleanor, who's in the room, sort of, I've sort of like clocked that and just mention that we are doing an Edinburgh Award, which is ostensibly for students to gain graduate competencies and for the work they do outside the curriculum. And Eleanor has been taking part in that, and it's something that students get a lot out of, but also staff, I find. But runs for each year from October to the end of March, and it's 55 to 80 hours, and it asks students to contribute to topic coverage on Wikipedia. But it strikes me that why should it just be Wikipedia when Wikidata and Wikimedia Commons are equally interesting and impactful projects? But Eleanor's been doing some sterling work improving the coverage of Swedish and Hispanic literature on Wikipedia, and obscure Sweden, well,
Obscure in Sweden.
not obscure in Sweden, authors and their works, but they're obscure on English Wikipedia as well. And I guess that's the point as well, just like linking back to the to the Wikipedia and AI session, is thinking that Wikipedia is used to help train these AI models. And if we are asking chat-based versions of the internet questions, we kind of need humans and verifiability and attribution to be part of the whole training of AI models that are going to deliver that trustworthy ecosystem. So I like the fact that students are contributing to Wikidata and Wikipedia, because it's going to make our ecosystem that much healthier if we have these pages about the history of Brunei, or Xinjiang and its diasporas, or hitherto obscure Swedish authors and their books. Any final thoughts in the room or online? I think I've stumped everyone. Okay, brilliant. And that means we are finishing with 2 minutes to go. So unless Jason and Sarah or Satu have anything in particular to add, Satu looks drained. Sorry. I think we will thank all our speakers and everyone online. Thank you for finding the room. It's not easy. Thank you for finding the Zoom. It turned out it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. And thank you to Jason and Sarah and Satu and to our, I was going to say dearly departed Dr. Chris Langley, but he's such an enthusiastic member of Wikidata and Wikibase community. And that's what we want, this community of interest to help support each other and build on that prior learning, to help students, staff, members of the public to all make these links and push forward and see what we can uncover next. So thank you very much, everyone. There's still some cakes, tea and coffee there if anyone wants to partake, but I'll stop the recording and thanks everyone again for coming. And if you're looking for student internship opportunities, there is a new one online for the summer, this summer coming, to help us write a National Lottery Heritage Fund bid to make sure the which data is fully preserved and able to be worked with in the longer term.